Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of A Better You. My name is Joshua Nugent, and today I am going to be discussing a topic that recently came to mind while I was at work. And I think it's a very important topic when it comes to sobriety and, how you approach it and how to continue how to have success in sobriety and to continue it. So today I'm going to be discussing finding purpose in sobriety. I think having purpose is very important for your journey into sobriety, continuing sobriety, and maybe even just approach to life. So, speaking for myself, and what my approach is to finding purpose, that was something that I struggled with for a very long time, with finding purpose and within my life and also within sobriety. And when I say finding purpose, because that could mean a lot of things to different people. I guess for myself, what that means for me is finding joy within myself and by living in this world and just appreciating the things that are around me and the things that I have, and just being happy. I think for myself, what brings me a lot of joy and a sense of purpose is when I take a serious approach to my writing. And, that's what helps me find joy and purpose in my life, is knowing that I can craft a story from scratch and give life to a world that I imagine within myself, within my mind. And I'm still fairly early into my writing career. At this moment, I'm still writing short stories and stuff that hopefully will turn into long-term projects, but it gives me a sense of purpose, knowing that I continue to put in this effort into something that I just genuinely enjoy doing. And, when I share it with people, and I haven't shared too much of my recent work, the only one that's really seen it is my girlfriend. But when I have shown people stuff of mine, to see how, the excitement that they get, or the surprise when it's whoa, this is actually pretty good. You should continue. That's always something that's real, interesting to me, just to spark that in people, And hopefully, one day I hope to inspire other people to be more creative. And that is something that's taken a long time for me to discover, to really find. Life can be pretty hectic at times, especially when I was younger. And it was something that, it was always something that I wanted to do, but I wasn't really sure how to go about it. I remember, just writing stories as a kid and writing in notebooks and stories that I never finished. And I remember one time I told a story to a friend, one of my good friends. I told him this story about it was a zombie survival story. And it was a 50-day story, and every time I had a phone conversation with him, it was never written anything down. It was like off the top of my head. And it was like each day it was like, dude, you got to tell me more. You got to tell me more. And at the time I didn't really I didn't really understand what I had. This ability to create, worlds and characters and trials and tribulations and just make a fun story for people to like listen or read or stuff like that. So recently I've been writing a lot more. I've been taking a more serious approach at it, and with my work schedule it is kind of difficult because I work third shift, but it's definitely bringing me a lot more joy. And sometimes when I'm at work, it gets so dead, and it's just so dead in the store. I mean, like 2-3 in the morning. I mean, you have maybe one customer coming in for something. I work at a CVS, and it's like for those I guess who don't know what a CVS is, it's like a convenience store. And people usually come, it's 24 hours, and people come in for one or two things, or depending on the day. And I have all this time just to, my boss tells me, hey, this is what you got to do, this is your task, and I'm left alone for a couple of hours. So it's a lot of times I just have so much time to myself to think. And the idea came up as I'm going through different thoughts of okay, what if I do with this part of the story and what this character goes through. And then the thought came in my head wow, I'm really blessed and lucky to finally get this off the ground. And I find that this is a real motivation for me now. And I started thinking about would I have been doing this if I was in active addiction? Definitely not the case. And just the amount of joy that it brings me, and also being able to do it sober was such a gift, something I just never appreciated. And then I started thinking to myself that could be a real struggle for people, if they're lost in the world and they don't have an understanding of what's my purpose. Sometimes people just go through the mundane task of every day and not really realize that the thing that they're doing every day is slowly eating away at them. And not everything is perfect. I can't say that I've made not everything in my life is perfect, far from it, but I've learned to have a healthy sense of acceptance and understanding what I can do in certain situations and what I can't do in certain situations. And acceptance is another key factor. And just going back to finding purpose, I think it's very important to really understand who you are as a person. I think that's that's probably the biggest thing, if you're trying to find what your purpose is, and again, just recalling from my own experiences, I didn't really know who I was for a long time. I've had many experiences where I was really fake, and I was pretending to be someone that I wasn't. I was chasing after attention from people. And, because I was just so empty inside at an early age that I thought the acceptance of people from outside of my family, I thought that that's what would make me happy. And it was the farthest from it. And after a while, when that stopped giving me fulfillment, I turned to something else. And I have a very addictive personality, and It didn't take long before drugs came into the mix and started filling that fulfillment and happiness. And then once that was done, it's like, oh my gosh, like, I don't know what to do next. I want to stop, but I can't. And, it's hard. It's hard to find purpose early in sobriety. It definitely is, because you're just so focused on just not wanting to feel this way anymore and not wanting to, hurt yourself, hurt your loved ones, maybe, you're bouncing from rehab to rehab, from sober living to sober living, maybe you're, getting arrested, you're tired of, dealing with the police. There's just so many factors that contribute to early sobriety, and everybody's different with, their journey and how it started. But at the core of it, I feel like, and this is just my personal opinion, but I feel like for addicts, a huge part of that is just not understanding like who we are as people. We've always had other people tell us, who we were, and we've kind of accepted that. We kind of accepted that, that label, that name tag on us. And we, for a long time, just, wore it without even really thinking about it. And I know for myself, when I got to rehab and I had time to self-reflect and started understanding like where my pain was, a lot of it was emotional pain. But I felt like a lot of it too was also like spiritual pain. And, when I say spiritual pain, I mean in a sense that there was no like sense of like moral code or moral compass. And not to say that, I harmed anyone, or, I've never like harmed anyone physically or like ever been convicted of anything. But, like I harmed people emotionally, and that always came back to me. And I'm a firm believer in karma. What you put into the world is what you're going to get out. And I felt like it was just this overwhelming dread, over me. And it took me a while to kind of figure out like, okay, like this is kind of what I need to do, is to find myself, and really understand who Joshua Nugent is. And I was very lucky to be around a lot of caring and loving people during that stage of rediscovering who I was. And, I think that's like a key aspect is, really breaking down who you are. And going back to the thing of acceptance is, once you really break that down, and when I say break it down, I mean there's a number of ways you can do that. You can do it with the help of a therapist. I had help from, I did a lot of one-on-one sessions during my stay. I've also done group therapy. And, really understanding how your mind works and understanding how you got to where you're at, I think is also very important. Understanding what your past looks like and how it led you to the present moment is very, very key in that. And also another strong bullet point is like understanding what shaped you, how your past experiences shaped you. Because when you figure out how your past shaped you, you're able to understand, okay, now I see why, I've been having trouble with finding happiness or finding that purpose. is because the events of X led me to Y, and now I'm at Z. And it's you can do it by yourself. It's not recommended. I wouldn't recommend it personally, because I feel like you do need outside help. You need, and that's another thing, is like being strong enough to ask for help. I feel like sometimes people may perceive it as like, oh, if I ask for help, that's a sign of weakness, but it's actually the opposite. Knowing that you're in that state where you can't tackle this problem alone, and just asking for help is one of the strongest things you can do. And just recognizing that and accepting, like, this is my position, this is just where I'm at. And there are people that are willing to help. There's, you just have to know where to look. And that state of self-reflection and understanding your past and coming to terms with a lot of things, I think, is important. Because once you get caught up with your past, once you come to an understanding of your past and replaying the tapes in your mind and learning to heal from the past pain, trauma, and coming into the present moment, it does take some time. But then there will be a moment where it's like, okay, like, my past doesn't really haunt me anymore. But now it's like, okay, what do I do now? Now that I know who I am, now that I understand who I was, I want to know who I am or who I will become. And for myself, the past and the future were the two scariest things, because, the past, I felt like my past defined me and my future didn't matter, because, I wasn't doing anything, that was going to bring me happiness for the future. I was financially insecure. I felt like so many other people were ahead of me in life at my age. And I was like, what's the point of even trying? I might as well just give up. And for the future tripping, as the term I've heard people call it, future tripping is when you learn to meditate and you learn to live in the present moment, when you learn to appreciate the breath and appreciate the now, you start to understand that the future really doesn't exist. And when I say the future doesn't really exist, what I mean by that is the future hasn't happened yet. That's the future is stuff that's happening within your mind. It's a concept in your mind that you imagine. And for some reason, and this is something that I've always done, for some reason, whenever I thought of the future, it was always something, it was of one of two extremes. It was either, oh my God, the future looks dark, like I can't do anything about it, like it's super scary, like why even try? Or it was fantasies of success, wealth, whatever success looks like. That's what I was. It was never something in the middle. It was never something just like, okay, like I have a family. I have a successful career. I make a good living, not too much money, but enough to support myself, my family. It was never something like casual. It was always one of the two extremes, either really, really good or really, really bad. And a book that I really recommend to anyone listening, something that I read that's pretty life-changing, is it's called The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. And it's a really strong, really eye-opening book because it forces you to be present in the moment. And when you read it, it's not something that, it always sticks with you. It's not something that ever goes away. And I've read the book about 3, maybe 4 times, but I'm going to say 3. And every time I've read the book, I've always gotten something different out of it. First time reading it, that awareness starts to open up. And then every time after, it was like, wow, I didn't catch that the first time I read it. And then third time, it's like, wow, I didn't catch that second time reading it. And I'm kind of holding off on reading it, partly because my girlfriend's reading it, but also because I want to save it for a special moment in the future, wherever that may be. Not something that I'm kind of tripping over about. It's something that I eventually want to do, but my approach to it is, not to rush it. Not that I rushed it, the second or third time. Maybe I did the first time, but it's something I want to hold on until I really feel it, until I feel like I really need to read it. And that's kind of like my approach sometimes with certain things about life. And learning to be present and bringing it back to the present moment, you start to become aware of like, I was kind of like fantasizing or tripping about, the future, something that hasn't come yet, because the life that we live is always experienced in the present moment. Maybe there was a past event that happened, right? But it was in the present moment. And there's like photographs that we can look back on, or maybe audio clips or stuff that can preserve moments of time in the past that we can experience again in the present, but it's always been the present moment. And the future is just something that we have yet to experience yet. It's a moment that hasn't happened. And once you come to terms, and I don't know if I'm explaining it well, I am trying my best, but I feel like once we come to understand our approach to how we view the past and the future, it can prepare us for the present moment. And it's like, okay, well, what do I do? I don't know how to approach the present. I've always felt like I lived, on edge. As speaking from the addict point of view, I don't really know what to do. I don't know how to find purpose. And like I said before, once you connect the dots and you start to understand how you became who you were from your past self, it leads into the present. And now it's like, okay, now you understand who you were. Now we need to rediscover who you are. And what are the things that make you happy? What are the things that pique your interest? And if you don't know, there's always things that you can try. There's always things that, you can search up online and look up new activities that you haven't tried. Because who knows, maybe you just haven't done it yet. But and that's the joy of living, is trying new things and seeing what works. And for myself, I was fortunate enough to know what I wanted to do from an early age, but like not really seeing it, and when I got sober and I understood my past, and I let go of the future as well, and just started understanding who I was, I rediscovered my passion and my love for writing and creating stories. And that could be the case for some people. Maybe they just need to rediscover that. Maybe they need to rediscover that. Or maybe they just haven't done enough and they need to do things that eventually something will stick. And that is something that I think I recommend to anyone that's struggling with addiction. You have to kind of tear down everything and, build that foundation, for yourself. Rediscovering who you are. And first you have to clean up the mess that has run amok in your mind. And it takes a while. It's not something that you can do overnight. But once you get to it and you clean up, then the next thing is just, building that foundation up again. And it's, like I said, it takes time. It's not something that you want to rush. And then it's also not something you should do alone. It's important to find a community of people that think the same, act the same, in regards to addiction. It's not something that you should do alone. And by being a part of a community, it can help you find that purpose again. And it's something that I'm so happy I decided to do, because I feel like with this new sense of purpose that I have, and being able to focus on that purpose with a clear mind, is something that it's truly a gift. And I am forever thankful for that version of myself that was in so much pain. And the day that I spoke to my parents and asked for help and told them, listen, I have a drug problem and I need help. And from there, it took off. I went on quite a interesting and not super crazy journey, but just looking back on it, there's moments where it's like, wow, I can't believe I came out the other side. And each day, I try to remember, and I constantly give myself reminders, like, it can all go back to that version of myself that was in pain, because sometimes that happens, sometimes we find that purpose and, it's good for a little while, but then we forget the work that we put in, we forget the steps that we took, and then we tumble. And that happens in life. Sometimes we fall, but it's important to always get back up and to keep moving forward, to finding that balance, always find that balance, the balance of who you are and who you want to become, and walking that middle path. That is something that brings me great joy. And hopefully in the future, I would love to share more of my writing works with everyone, It is something that I'm very interested in doing, but I just need to build up more of, I guess you could say, a portfolio. And when the time is right, I will know. So, with that, I want to thank everyone for listening to this. I'm very grateful that you guys take the time, whoever you are, that you've taken the time to listen to this in its entirety. And if you haven't been told already, you are loved, you are appreciated. Keep striving, keep working towards that purpose. Never forget your roots, never forget who you are, and just try to help someone, one person that is in need. So with that, thank you, God bless, and until next time.